All right, how's it going? Henry here, and it is time for another update on the magical world of podcasting. So I'm really excited about this video because I'm going to break down everything that I know pretty much. So it's going to be a long one. Stick with me through it. Hopefully it makes sense, and after watching this, you will know all the tools that I use to do my podcast, the Positive Mindset Podcast. I'll put a link. You can check it out. It's a real podcast. Just for some proof to show that's a real podcast, let me swing over here to the charts. So this is on Spotify podcast charts, like it's a real thing. Like I'll refresh the page. You can scroll down here. We're going to go from top podcast. So I actually rank in the education category. You scroll down, that's my podcast right there. That's me, Henry number 14, and we can swing over to Apple as well. That is me at 55 right now, and this is in the scroll up here, education. So Apple, bigger pie there to get in, but ranked on both those. So if you want to rank your podcast, if you want to grow your podcast, hopefully this is helpful. I'm by no means an expert. I started this podcast a little while ago, a couple years ago, and you can see where I started. I didn't have very much success. But hopefully, with what I've learned, you can apply it. The podcast now, last weekly update was about, let's see here, 48,000, so just under 50. I'll definitely hit 50,000 downloads this upcoming week, and I'll show you, why that is. It's been growing. But yeah, so these are the lessons to get from here to here. So the first thing we're going to start with, this is the least, I guess, the most simple, idea of how to do it is consistency. So when I started my podcast, I really started like the Positive Mindset Podcast. So this channel actually existed. I just, renamed it and stuff of August of 2020. I got laid off and wanted to focus on something. I had this podcast. It had gotten like a few downloads, not much, but it was enough to where I figured, hey, why don't I go ahead and use, this platform and do something I enjoy? And that's why I like podcasting. It's a different way than YouTube or TikTok to connect with somebody, because a lot of listeners are going for a run, they're on their way to work, so it's like educational. So when someone wants to take in some kind of information or be entertained while maybe active or doing something without their eyes. Now you can do video podcasting, and I might talk about that if the conversation goes there. But ultimately, people are checking into a podcast to kind of guide them through whatever they're doing, and so that's why I love the medium. Or medium, as we call it. So I was here, and now we're up here. So the first thing is consistency. So when I started the podcast, I was laid off, so I had a lot of time, and my idea was, let's just generate a lot of content. So I started doing a podcast every single day. And I did that for a couple months, just every single day. I didn't miss, and I started getting traction. You can see the podcast started growing up a little bit, and then what really made a big jump is I went to 2 podcasts a day. Now that was a lot, but the idea behind it was if I created more content, odds of somebody discovering me would be higher. So I just did more. Now that was exhausting. I did it for an entire month. I think it was the month of it was either November or December of 2020 when I decided to do that, and it was exhausting, but I made it all the way through, and then I went back to 7 days, then I eventually went down to 5 days, and then I went down to 3 days a week, and now I'm currently doing 5 days. So I've been doing 5 days a week for probably 5 or 6 weeks now, but I did 3 for a long time, just 3 weeks, but moved it up to 5 just for me. The Positive Mindset Podcast is about having a positive mindset, and so a lot of the meditations I do, vision planning, all that stuff is around this, so it kind of keeps me accountable. So I like doing the 5 a week with that. So the first thing that I highly recommend you using, and I'll put the links in, it'll either be in the description or the top comment, however that works. This is something new. So this right here is Headline Studio. I just switched to the Pro version. If you watched my last video, I had just started using this. I'd kind of just discovered it on a TikTok video. Someone talked about it. I think they were using it for blogging. But what it does is you basically can put your headline. So this was the last headline that I used. So how you can achieve anything you set your mind to and create a positive life. So you put it in here and you analyze it, and it breaks down the words so this is like all green, so that's like a win-win-win across the board. So this was definitely a good one to use, but it talks about your balance of words, and so you can see like here's some ones that weren't so good. Actually, that's the last title of this podcast, so that's what I made an adjustment on there. But you can see the version history. So you might put in something and it gets a 66 score, and then you slowly start changing it, trying to get that score up. So you can see how that works up away. The higher the score, the more likely someone is going to click. So I think you may have heard the term clickbait or something like that. It's essentially that. I believe my podcast is of substance and value, and if the title is something that hooks them in, that's relevant to the message, I'm okay with it being a little bit clickbaity because I think people benefit when they listen to the podcast. I mean, it's something I put a lot into, and I think most people enjoy it. So as long as your content's good, I wouldn't recommend, just putting together a bad podcast or just spamming, junk and then trying to tie in some kind of hook that has nothing to do with it just to get the listen. Long term, I don't think you're going to see a lot of success with that. So, just keep that in mind. But so this Headline Studio is like the number one thing. You can use a free version. I used the free version until I maxed it out, and I have made back, it's like $99 or something like that for the year. I've made that back tenfold by just buying this program. It was absolutely worth it. I highly, highly recommend it. Again, it breaks down everything. It's really helped me understand. So I'm better at writing titles now. So a lot of times when I write it, I get a higher score right there. You can also do SEO score for search traffic. It definitely helps because, Google, which is the biggest search engine in the world, is a podcasting platform too. So you do have episodes on there, or if you do YouTube, things like that, it's really valuable. I'm going to use it for this YouTube episode. I'm going to use it to help me make something there. But yeah, you can see, the episode title that I just did on there, it's right there. So I use them. It absolutely helps. I highly, highly, highly recommend using Headline Studio. The next thing is capturing emails. So capturing emails is valuable for a number of reasons. One, if something were to happen, so this actually happened recently where Anchor, which I use, went down, and Anchor was still working, but for some reason it wasn't able to send the episodes over to, I think it was Spotify might have been working, but iTunes was down, like all the other ones were down. And I get a lot of listeners through the other platforms. In fact, we can see they just updated this, so it's a little bit different than it was before. But if we go down, let's see, I think they moved it, audience maybe. Yeah, so you can see almost 30% is from Apple, and then 6% is ever. So only 67% on Spotify were able to listen to my podcast. And so luckily I had a little bit of email list, and I was able to send the message saying, hey, it's down, but you can check it out on this other platform. And so that got people in, so they were able to listen to the episode, because otherwise, didn't have a way to contact them. You could also do the same thing with social media, but you don't own your social media account. You own emails. When you do an email list, you basically can download them on your computer. You have access to them. You could lose your social media account in a second. You could lose your podcast in a second because it's on a platform, and that platform does have the freedom to decide to remove you at any time or create some kind of barrier. So I highly recommend capturing emails. I use ConvertKit, and again, it has a free setup that you can use. I am paying for it now because it gives a little bit more features, but I don't have that many. I only have 218. I need to find a better way to add or get subscribers. What I'm going to do is try to create like either a free offer, or I'll probably do like a free meditation. So I'm going to put some kind of positive mindset meditation together, and when you give me your email, I'll give you the free meditation. I think that'll generate a lot more emails, and I send an email every single day. So basically what I do is on the broadcast here, I send an email out every time a new episode comes out. These numbers aren't that accurate because I know I get more clicks than this, because I can see it on other, ends. So don't worry about that too much. I just more think about it as, hey, it's something to do. It keeps the rhythm going. It keeps me flowing in what I'm doing. But I just do a real simple email. I basically take the, let's see if you can see it here. Let's content. See how you can view it. I basically, have a little logo I made for the podcast, and then it says, Happy Friday. They'll say their first name, and then a little, what the episode is about. And this is the same thing. Like if I go to my episodes, it's the same thing that I put in the, info of the episode. So I write it here, copy it, and then I throw it right in here. And so it's really simple. I schedule it, and then it has a link to, where they can listen to the podcast. This is also really valuable if you're going to start selling courses, or if you're going to offer something, that you want people to interact with. If you have their emails, I think you're going to have a better chance because, again, a lot of times people might be listening to a podcast while they're going for a drive or for a run or doing a workout. They may not pause and click a link. It's not like YouTube where someone's physically watching. You're watching this right now. It's really easy to go down and click and look at something versus a podcast you may not be. That is a value opportunity to maybe start doing video podcasts so people watch. I currently do not. That's the next thing that I'm looking to do. I just need to design a set that kind of fits with what the podcast is. And when I do my podcast, I really kind of zone in. So sometimes I might be, eyes closed, really focused in. And so I don't know how that would look on a podcast. So I got to figure all that out. But that's why it's really important to do emails. Another way to grab emails is this interact thing. It pulls emails, and I just did a quiz. So you just have this quiz that you go to, and you fill it out, and it'll basically capture their email and then give them, the answer to the question. This site is really cool. I'm trying to figure out. I haven't messed with it in a while because I just kind of made the quiz, and let's see here. Let's check this one. I kind of made the quiz, and it gives you guidelines, so it kind of makes it easy to do. But you just put in your info, and then it'll opt in right to ConvertKit, so it makes it really easy to do. It's more fun, so it's a fun thing somebody can do. It's like $29 a month, so I think it's worth it. But again, it's Interact, so I'll put the link in the description. So if you want to check that out, a couple of these are affiliate links, so if you do join, it helps support what I'm doing. So I appreciate that. I don't think this one is though. This one and ConvertKit I don't think are. But yeah, so those are kind of the main things that I use right now. Now here is, let's swing back over to Anchor. A lot of times people want to see the money. So $25,000. That was, that's pretty good. $25,000 from this podcast. That is just amazing to me that I could do that, just trying to help people. This is just from here though. This actually doesn't talk about Advertisecast, which I want to show you this. Advertisecast is another place that you can get ads from. So they will buy a ad spot like Host Red. So, they'll give you, Domino's, for example, and then you say, your spot this episode is brought to you by Domino's. Domino's is the best pizza in the whole wide world, and if you love pizza, you're going to love Domino's. If you listen to this podcast and you want some Domino's, click the link, you'll save 20%, and you can have Domino's every day for the rest of your life. Whatever the spot is, and then they pay you. This one's pretty tough to compete with, I'll be honest. If you're a smaller podcast, I don't think you're going to get very many advertisers. The minimum requirement used to be 5,000 downloads per episode, and I think they got rid of that, but odds of getting a sponsorship spot I think are really low if you're at 5,000 or less. I mean, I've only gotten a few through here. I've turned down actually a handful of them, but the ones that I've accepted don't pay that much. They pay like $100 and I think $5 an episode, which is great. I definitely don't want to complain about it, but it's not a ton of money compared to what I'm doing through Anchor, and it's not very often that you get them. But it's worth signing up if you can. Worst case, nothing happens. Best case, you connect with some advertisers. One thing I'm going to do that I haven't done yet is I'm going to go through the available advertisers and maybe try to contact them directly. So I'll send them a mock-up because maybe it's not valuable for them to buy one episode, because if you go to my episodes here, I do so many a week. Since I do 5 a week, it kind of hurts the downloads, but you can see, in that 5,000 to 7,000 downloads per episode, which is still strong, and that's how it gets over, or soon to be over 50,000 a week. But maybe a company would be interested in sponsoring like a whole week. So, instead of saying, hey, you can get 5,000 to 7,000 contacts, you're actually going to get 50,000. For X amount. And then at the beginning of every episode, say, this episode is brought to you by Domino's or, whatever. I got pizza on the mind. So that might be something different that I'm going to try. I'll let you know if that works. Now, a lot of people ask about, how do you make your episode clickable? Well, so what's helped me a lot is go to like, how to stop thinking, how to get up. So almost like I'm answering a question. I am in the self-help space, so that might be relevant, but you got to think like people are, if they're going to discover you, they don't know who you are. So they're not going to see your name and be like, oh, let me click it because of this person. They're going to click on it because they're going to be interested in the title and then the description. So if you go to like the charts here, let's click on my podcast. So you see it does like a description here, and then actually I don't know if I can go to the podcast from there to show that. Let's see. I don't really need to follow my own podcast. Well, that doesn't seem to work, but maybe it'll work here. Let's see. The description of the episode, I just think having that is valuable. Let's see. Okay, so, well, that's just all the rankings, so you can see there. But, I guess because I pulled that on Chartable, so not helpful with that. But the descriptions help a ton, putting that in there for someone to discover, because they're going to read it. So the first thing they do is read your podcast, and if they read it and it's not like creative, again, that's why the headline studio is so valuable, because it'll help you make something worth reading. But that's why it's so important to have a title that hooks them. And then also the beginning of your podcast matters a ton. So if you haven't listened to my podcast, basically what I do is I started out with, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Positive Mindset Podcast, where we work together to raise our vibration, lift our perspective, and build a positive mindset. My name is Henry, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about how to shift a negative mindset. If you are feeling down or depressed and you just can't see that next step ahead of you, then this episode, we're going to break down an opportunity that you might have, and if you follow through with it, it could clear the way so that you could move forward into a more positive mindset. So that's one I just made up. Obviously, I've done a lot of episodes. I've done over 400, and so, which actually, while we're here, let's just see how many I've done. Just for the conversation here. So you can see that's plays. I've done 487 episodes. So I've said that intro a lot, so it flows off the tongue. But it ideally hooks them. I mean, maybe you listening to it, it hooked you. Again, it's geared towards somebody that is probably in a negative state, so they're looking to get in a positive state. So it might appeal to them. You may not be dealing with that, so it may not. But whatever your niche is, you really want to hook them in. I used to do like an excerpt from the podcast. So like whenever I was saying like a good line, like if I went and listened back, it's like, oh, that was, some gold right there. I would try to put that at the front. That didn't really work though that well because people don't know who I am. So it's, maybe a good quote or a good saying or something like that, but they don't know who I am. So the value of just hearing my voice saying something isn't that high versus, if I had a guest on that people knew, or it was just a name or a voice that's recognizable, it would probably hook them in a little bit more than just me. So changing it up to that will really help, creating a good intro. If you actually go to my podcast and listen to the early episodes, you can see like the difference from where I came from and then how it is now. In fact, there's some episodes that don't even make sense because they're ones I recorded way before I was in this positive mindset theme. But practice with that. The first one you come up with, that first like catchphrase or whatever, doesn't have to be the one used forever. Like I might eventually change mine. This is just the one that I'm feeling, connected with now, that flows well, that I feel like, embodies what I'm doing. Like raise your vibration, change your perspective, and get a positive mindset. Like that's the whole thing, right? I'm trying to help people change how they're feeling on the inside. I do that by taking a lesson or scenario or situation and try to have a different perspective about it, like a perspective that gives value, so that way someone has a positive takeaway from it. And then that's what builds a positive mindset. So like those three things are the cornerstone of what it does. So think about your podcast, what it does, and maybe that's how you can create an intro that could be really helpful and hopefully get people to listen in. Ads are another thing. I've recently been able to add more ads to my podcast. You can see some of these have 3, 1, 2. If you listen to them, you'll hear the ads that are in there. I'll link the Spotify link because these all play in Spotify. The iTunes, it does not. Only the original one does. So you can see the placement. But once you're able to do that, so I have the host rate ad, that's the anchor one. And then I have the automated ads, but this one currently only plays on Spotify. You can see it's not on other platforms. It'll be great when it does because that's 40% of my listens. But it's not there yet. But where you put your ads matter. It can be a huge turnoff. I currently have like the host read ad plays and then a automated ad plays in the beginning. 2 ads seems to be about the norm for a podcast when it opens up, so I feel okay with that. I wouldn't put any more than that. Dives right into the message, and then I have an ad that plays at the end, kind of like an ending. But my episodes are 10 to 15 minutes, so they're not that long. If it was like a 30-minute podcast, 40-minute podcast, I could probably add more commercial breaks. And if I do have episodes that go that long, I do. But generally in that 10 to 15, the ad in the beginning and the ad at the end or ad breaks is the way to do it. Of course, I would love to do more because you make more money with that. But if you just think money first all the time, then that might get away from your mission. I mean, if your mission is to make as much money as possible, then go for it. But my mission is to make money for sure because I want to have like goals of what I want to expand. It's the same reason why I do this channel. I think that I connect with people that mean well, want to do well, want to help people, and those are the type of people I want to, rise with. I want to make money. I want to invest in businesses to help people that do that because I believe when good people have money, they do good things. But a lot of times, good people don't make a lot of money because we're servant-hearted and we put money last and things like that. So that's why I want to do that with it. Last thing, just to kind of see here, this current balance, I pay myself out every Friday. It's actually Friday that I'm recording this. The reason there's so much money here right now is I paid myself out this morning at 9 a.m. and that was about $600. So that was from my Anchor ad. But this 581 is actually from the automated ads. So as you can see here, the host read ads have made about 21.8, but I've made 25,000. So the extra money is from these Spotify ads, which are new. I've only had them since the beginning of the year. Or I think maybe they started in October and then I turned them off for a month or something like that. But either way, that's made up the difference there, and that's where that's come from. So I hope this episode was long, or it was definitely long, but I hope this episode was impactful and not too long. I just figured I'd press record, give everything out. I actually did a call with somebody today, and it's kind of stuff that I went over with him, and I wanted to put that in the episode, so hopefully it was helpful. If there's anything specific that you want me to do a episode on, let me know. I'll have another episode out soon as I continue to learn more. If you like my podcast, feel free to check it out and subscribe, of course, if you want to. Subscribe to this channel if you want more of this information. This isn't always going to be a channel about making money podcasting. There are some other things that I'm doing. I do mindset coaching, obviously, which goes along with that. But I didn't include that in there. That is definitely a much more higher ticket item. In fact, I make more on that than I do the podcast, but I don't think I could just show you how to coach and then you would make that kind of money. So I don't know if it's really relevant. Creating a podcast, very, very different. That side thing is not comparable, but the idea is to make $10,000 a month. That's something, actually I'll show, let's see if I can pull that up real quick. Well, I'll pull it up in the next episode, but the goal is to make $10,000 a month by the end of 2022. I think I've made 4,500-ish is the most I've made a month so far. So a little ways to go. I've got some stuff that I'm working on, building a membership group that hopefully will be the key driver to take that to the next level. So once that's going, I'll share how to do that. So that way if you want to do it, hopefully you can figure it out and do it along with me. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you want to follow along. Have a great day, and I can't wait to talk to you next time.